What's happening, guys? Safety Liner C2 here. So I got a video request from Connor who wanted to know what year a bus is, just kind of by looking at it, and I'm gonna hopefully point you down the right trail in this video. Now, I've wanted to do a video like this for quite a while and just haven't because I didn't know where to start, and with that video request, I think this is a great place to start. And I think this is going to be the start of a new series that I'm going to call Bus Basics. And in this series, we'll just talk about the basics of school buses. So like how to figure out what year a bus is. We can talk about how to figure out what state a bus is from, or talk about the history of this or that or whatever. I've wanted to do this for a while. I just really haven't gotten around to it. And like I said, with this video request, I think this is a great place to start. So if you have an idea or maybe a question, or you want to know something more about buses or a history or whatever it is, I have a new section in the video request form. You can find that in the description of any one of my videos. Just throw it in there and then we'll see what happens. And let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and talk about how we can just look at a school bus and figure out what year it is. Now, this is not an exact science, as you might imagine, and I think I should point out that I've been doing this for quite a while, many years, and it's just something that I think will take time. If you're starting from nothing, it's going to take some time, but eventually you will be able to get to the point of, oh, this bus is either between this year or this year, and maybe it's exactly this year based off of this, that, and the other. It just takes time. And the first thing I would recommend you do, if you're, maybe not as familiar with what the specific years for something might be, is to just start local and figure out your own fleet first. And once you're able to figure out your own fleet, that's going to be a great solid starting ground for you, because then you can take that knowledge and you can apply it to, say, a neighboring district and figure out what theirs is, and then a neighboring district, and then you're able to identify a district in a different part of the state, maybe a different part of the country, or at least be able to narrow stuff down. And the second thing I would recommend is for you to take a look at either pictures or videos of buses that already have solid years, that have already identified, already documented and stuff, and just compare those to other years and see if you're able to pick up any minor differences. Doing both of those, especially when I was younger, really set me up to where I'm able to just kind of look at a bus now and be able to narrow it down or give a specific year. But again, like I said, it just is going to take time. And now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about some specific ways that you can actually figure out what year a bus is, starting with the build plate. The build plate, if you have that, you're pretty much done. You can figure out what year the bus is because it is going to either say, or you're going to be able to figure out the model year based off of that. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to see the build plate every single time, and that's where, learning some of this other stuff comes in handy, because, you're driving, or you can't find the build plate, or the bus is, behind a fence and you can't get in, or whatever the case may be. But the build plate is going to be able to tell you when the bus was made, which will give us the model year of the bus, which is what we're looking for. So let's take a look at this build plate. We can see that this is a Bluebird International that was manufactured in October of 1988. And on top of that, we can run the VIN, which is at the bottom of the build plate, and we can see that this also pulls up as a 1989. But if you're short on time, you can take a look at the 10th digit of the VIN, and that will tell you the year of the bus. And I, as well as a lot of other enthusiasts, also try to base the year that we type out, for example, in a picture, based off of the VIN number. So the build plate is generally the way to go if you are able to access it, but like I said, it's not always going to happen. The second way you can figure out what year a bus is by checking out the license plate. So using the license plates is a lot of how I confirm stuff. So like whenever I'm uploading my pictures to Flickr and I don't have an exact year, but I have the license plate, I always try to run that. But unfortunately, it's not going to work in every single state. I use Carfax to look up the license plates, just type it in, select the state, hit enter, and I'm able to pull up the year of the bus, and it's as simple as that. And that's just mainly how I do it for pictures I'm uploading when I'm not familiar with the fleet. and it just, I'm not going to be able to memorize the license plate and the year of the bus based off of those two. There's just, too many numbers and letters flying around, but that is a solid way that I have figured out, mainly from my, pictures. So the build plate, the license plate, those are, two pretty sure ways to figure out the bus. But let's say we don't have access to either of those. We can see the side of the bus. There's still ways to figure it out. So first off, let's talk about numbering. Now this is just going to depend on what the buses you're looking at are. Some places this might work perfectly, some places this is going to have no relevancy, but it really just depends. So for numbers, some districts will just straight up tell you what the year of the bus is in the number. For example, take a look at this bus. We can see that the first 2 digits of the bus are the year of the bus, and then the 3 digits after are the actual bus number. It's as simple as that. We figured out the year just by looking at the number. And there's plenty of places that do this around the country, whether it's year bus number or bus number year, an ID for like contractors. Again, it just depends. But hey, maybe you don't have a numbering system like that. Maybe you have just a normal sequential numbering system. And we can break that down into 2 separate categories of fleets. Fleets that once they retire a bus, they replace that number, and fleets that just keep going up and up and up. So with that first set, it's going to be a lot harder to figure out years because you're filling in numbers, and you might have a 2008 and then a 2023, then a 2015. Just because you're filling in numbers as buses get retired. But if you have a sequential system where the numbers just keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and those holes aren't filled in, that's going to help you be able to narrow down those years. Let's go back to that Bluebird International that we were looking at earlier. If we take a look at it, we can see that it's bus number 482, and I immediately recognized the bus as I was walking up to it as one that came from the district I grew up in. And upon seeing the numbering, I knew that, okay, well, the 450s or so were 1987s, give or take. The, 500s were 1990s, so I can tell that 482 is either a 1988 or 1989. So numbering is kind of tricky unless the bus literally tells you the year in the number. It just depends, though, and that's one where you really have to get to know the fleet to be able to narrow down those years. Now that we got numbering out of the way, let's talk about the chassis, and this mainly just applies to older buses. Now there are so many different chassis that were used, and we can, again, narrow down the years based off of when the specific chassis was built. Going back to that Bluebird International, the S1800 was only available in the 1980s, so we're able to narrow down what year the bus could possibly be to 10 years. And because we don't have the variety that we had, 30 plus years ago, this is really just going to apply to older buses. So as long as you're able to narrow down the chassis to the set number of years that it was in place, then you can, again, figure out the set of years that it could potentially be. Another thing to look out for is specs on the bus. So, for example, there was a weird law in 1995, that was the only year it was in effect, that required all school buses to have a left side emergency door. Very weird. I'm going to have to do another video on why that happened, but if you see a 90s bus and it has a left side emergency exit, more than likely it's going to be a 1995. Wisconsin buses, if it only has 4 red warning lights on it, it's older than 2003. And you can also just look at things as simple as the warning lights. It's more likely that a newer bus would have LED lights than a older bus would. So if you're able to figure out when the fleet switched over from incandescent to LED, or from 1 stop sign to 2 stop signs, or whatever it may be, that's again going to narrow down the years for you. You can also look at things such as the engine. So for example, the C2 offered the Mercedes-Benz engine from its launch up until 2009, so that will narrow down years for you. And on the same page is when we get into the last part, and it's just very, very, very specific things that you can look at on a bus that you might not realize, but it will again help you narrow down the years. And with all of these other things that I've been talking about, that can really help you narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3 years. So I'll give you a couple different examples here in a second, but this is really where it's gonna have to be broken up into different videos because there's so many different buses out there, and you can identify, minor things on different buses that might not be on the next one that will help you, again, narrow down those years. But again, those are for other videos, and if you have a specific bus you might want to know more about, throw that in the video request form. So let's look at some very random things you might never think to look at if you have no idea of what you're looking at, that can help you figure out what year the bus is. So let's start off, take a look at these pictures of the back of a C2. And upon initial look, yeah, they look pretty similar. There's not a big difference here. Take a look specifically at the taillights, and especially the reverse light. You can see that the reverse light on the C2s from launch up until 2007 are like half of what the brake lights are, but on 2008 up until now, they are all the exact same size. Very random, but again, that's just how they did it. Let's stick with Thomas and take a look at the backs of these 3 different HDXs. So again, upon initial look, these all might look pretty similar. But looking at this picture, we can see that the bus has round taillights, and that means that the bus is between 2003 and 2009. Compare that to this bus, which has the square taillights. We can see that this bus is somewhere between 2010 and 2020. And now take a look at this picture. This is 2021 to present, but don't take a look at the taillights. Take a look at that back window. Notice how it is completely squared off, and compare that to the last picture where we saw that the corners were rounded. Again, just very, very random details. Let's move over to Bluebird and take a look at these 2 visions. Again, upon first glance, they look pretty much exactly the same, but take a look at the Bluebird logo directly above the grille. Notice how the logo kind of stays within the cutout of the grille. That means that this bus is somewhere between a 2008 and 2014. And compare that with the 2015 through 2021 models, we can see that the Vision logo is much bigger. It goes outside of that portion set aside for the grill. Again, it's just a very specific random thing that if you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it. And we can't let IC feel left out, so let's take a look at these 2 CEs. Now this is one I actually didn't know about until recently. Nishan pointed it out to me and it blew my mind, but it works. Take a look at the location of the crossing gates on these. Notice that on this bus, the crossing gate is at the top of the bumper, but on this bus, the crossing gate is at the bottom of the bumper. The top of the bumper means that the bus is anywhere from 2005 through 2008, and the bottom of the bumper means that the bus is somewhere between 2009 up until now. It's such a random thing, you would have never suspected it unless you're actually looking, and it works. So when you combine everything that I talked about, the numbering, the specs, the oddities of the bus, the chassis, and if you have the build plate or the license plate, you're going to be able to figure out what year the bus is very easily. And especially, again, like I said, once you start learning your own fleet and you're able to pick up on these small things, that you're going to have a much easier time. But I'll have to do separate videos going into more specifics on things you can find on like a Vision or a CE, an ICFE or an EFX or whatever. But though again, those are for different videos. But anyways, I hope that you learned something in this video, and hopefully you will find this series useful if you are just starting off as a bus enthusiast, or you want to know something more about school buses if you already are. If you have any ideas on topics I could cover or things that you want to know more about, you can throw it in the video request form found in the description of any one of my videos. And with that, that is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe right down here. It's a magical white button that says you are now subscribed to SafetyLiner C2. Make sure you comment up here, down here, over here, or over here. I don't know where they put it down here, where they put it. Make sure you also give this video a thumbs up, or you're never going to be able to figure out what the year of a bus is. And make sure you also share this video with a friend, show it to your mom, show it to your dad, show it to a guy on a random street, I don't care. Don't let anything happen to you. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this video. And thanks for watching.